So the six too, just so you know, it comes from your conscious sun and your unconscious sun and earth. So these two are the sun, and then we have the earth. So that's what creates your profile. So
Okay.
yeah, the six too. The six is really about like being a role model and just like the two line. There's this wisdom, this natural wisdom, which I feel like for you, you're gonna have a lot of intuitive wisdom that you're going to have, and then really role modeling that, in your life, right? And I don't know if you know this, but the sixth line has three different phases. So there's like the ages like 0 to 30 is like pre-Saturn return, and that's a lot of like trial and error. So the sixth line is more like a three line, like lots of different jobs, different relationships, living in different places, like lots of experimentation. And then when around the age of 29 is when the sixth line goes to on what we call the roof. So they're on the roof. So that's like a very much like observing the world and like really seeing deeply into things, and this goes until the age of 30 to about 50, and then 50 onward is like this realm of like mastery, like you've seen all the things, you've done all the things, now you like know all the things, and you're here to just live it. So I'm curious if that resonates with you. I just wanted to go a little bit deeper into it.
Yeah, it totally does.
They say like very surface level description of your sacral authority is like, oh yeah, you just want to like do the things that lights you up and answer yes or no. But the huge thing is actually responding to things in your environment. So what that means is when opportunities come up, like let's say somebody has a conversation with you and they throw this idea out there and you're like, ooh, is that a yes or a no? But let's say what happens a lot of the times is that people, sacral beings, will respond to their ideas, right?
Mhm.
They're like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm going to go and do this thing. And then they do the thing and then it doesn't work out because they weren't co creating with their environment. So that's like super important. And I really like to emphasize that for people. And I'm curious if that resonates with you and if you can think of times where you like maybe responded to an idea and you were like really excited and then you did it and then it like didn't work out how you wanted it to.
Oh yeah, totally.
So the generator's plateau is, and I've experienced this like so many times, and like people don't like sacred beings don't like this, but it happens. The generator's plateau is literally when there's like nothing to respond to in your environment, and you feel like you're not like doing anything, and you're like, okay, like I have the energy, like I want it, what the F, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so the generators plateau, I probably hit this like 3 or 4 times last year, and it's hard in the thick of it to be like, okay, I'm like I have this energy, like I want to do something, and like nothing is really like pulling, you know what I mean, or nothing is like shifting. And what I've learned, and I this has really helped me, is really trusting that if I can't yet see what it is that I am to respond to, it doesn't mean that it's not there. It's literally, I like to believe that it's the universe realigning things in order to give me something to respond to.
Oh, I
And
love
so
that.
I'm right, but like this has helped me so much because let's say if I'm being completely honest, in September I quit my full-time job and I went full-time into my coaching business.
Mhm.
And that made no logical sense. It was literally just a straight, well, yes, my contract was done. Kayla, do you want to continue? Nope. I'm responding to my environment. I jumped in. And I really did hit a generator's plateau. Like logically, it was like, Kayla, why would you do that? Like you just, what about income? What about this? And all these things. And I was like, really had to be patient to wait to respond. And then really in February and this month in March, things came up for me to respond to, and they were so much better than I expected. But I could have been, if I didn't know about human design, I would have been initiating. I would have been spinning my tires. I would have been throwing this out there, throwing that out there. But I was like, Kayla, you have to respond to your environment. And so I wanted to share this with you because it is very common as a generator to experience that. And there's like nothing wrong with you. It's literally trusting the environment that you're in, that things are happening behind the scenes, and that things are going to come up for you to respond to. Even if it's things that are no, there's still things coming up, right?
Mhm.
So I'm curious if that resonates with you because it's hard to not want to initiate, but it's the initiating, wasting energy, and then it leads to frustration, right? So it's
Right.
not worth it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense.
I actually want to tap into this because your splenic center is like so lit up, and I really want to hear like your experience. So the splenic center is about your intuition, and it's about like safety and security. So making decisions, for example, or you might even notice this theme coming up in your life, even though you're a sacral authority, of having this energetic theme as well of like, is this good for me? Is this healthy for me? Like, do I trust this intuitively? Like, is this going to bring me safety and security? Like, those are the kinds of questions that you may notice come up along with, that sacral of like, is this a yes or a no, right? So I'm curious if like when you make decisions, because it's like, okay, yes, your sacral is your authority, but obviously your energy communicates and you have, you have like a full on conscious channel connecting to the sacral. So I'm curious, when you make decisions, do you find that there's like this intuitive flavor as well?
There is, but I am a notorious overthinker. So I often have like a gut feeling about whatever the situation is, but I don't always follow the gut feeling because I overthink it, and I'm like, oh no, well, this will be better for me now, and you can always do that later. Like,
Yeah. So one of the things to pay attention to is that your head and your ajna, so the top two centers are undefined in your chart. So the head and the ajna, do you know what those centers are about?
not completely, no.
Okay, I'll explain it to you so you can have awareness. So when you talk about overthinking, your head center is a pressure center. And this is where, like, because you have it undefined, it's going to be really easy for you to receive a lot of inspiration. Like, you're just going to be very observant. You're going to notice a lot of things. And then the ajna is about taking that information and like turning it into like conceptualization. So like your beliefs, your opinions, what you think is right or wrong, understanding, that kind of thing. So the not self theme, so each center will have its own not self theme. The not self theme of these centers is like, oh my God, I need the answers. I need to figure this out. Like, I need to be certain. I don't know. I don't know if I know this. Like, do I know this? Do other people believe that I know this? So there's a lot of like fear around knowing and then the pressure to find the answers. So the reason why I want to bring awareness to this is because if you find yourself thinking your way through things, coming back down into the sacral and asking yourself yes or no questions will get you reconnected to your body rather than trying to logically figure things out.
Okay. I like
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. That's good.
Yeah. So even just like, let's say you're really in your head and then you ask yourself a yes or no question, like, do I really believe this? And it's like, well, no, not really. You know what I mean? And you start to like just dissipate that pressure or that like uncertainty and coming back into like really trusting your gut and your intuition. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the 50 to 27 channel. I'm just looking it up in my notes. So this channel, this is coming from your sacral center into your splenic center, or like vice versa. So that connection. So that channel is known as the channel of preservation, and it's known for, it's designed to like nurture, care, teach, and transmit the values needed for like the next generation or the next family or like the next community that you're working with. So I find it really interesting because you mentioned that you have a teaching background. So I feel like this is something that's like very organically going to show up in your life. And so, it's that's what this channel means. Just so you know, you have that like very intuitive and like natural way of wanting to like continue to preserve and like give resources to, your collectives and your families and whatnot. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's one of your channels. We'll talk about gate 48, which is the gate of depth. So I have this one unconsciously defined in my chart, so I can relate to it. But this gate is so each gate has a shadow frequency, a gift, and the highest frequency. And so when I teach about human design and gene keys, like I always really make sure that your shadows are not bad. There's no like, oh, I need to get rid of my shadows. Like that's not how it works, because it's like you access the gift through the shadow. So the kind of metaphor that I like to share with people is your shadow is like the soil, right? The fertilizer, whatever you want to call it. The gift is ultimately, the seed growing into, the body of the flower, and the city is like the blooming of the flower. So if you imagine you take away the dirt, the flower will not live.
Right.
So I really like to emphasize that. So 48, the shadow is inadequacy, the gift is resourcefulness, and the highest expression is wisdom. So what that means is that this gate is really has this intuitive ability to hold like a deep and natural wisdom, and it takes that, so there's like fear gates in the splenic center, right? So the fear of like inadequacy ultimately will drive you to look for the resources that will give you the wisdom that you need, right? Okay. So then that kind of ties into like security and safety and whatnot. And 48 is in your Pluto. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the Pluto planet. So Pluto is all about, your truth, your growth, and transformation. So the way that I would interpret that is like you're going to be using your intuitive gifts that you have from your splenic center to really gather the wisdom that's going to allow you to transform and grow and like find your truth in your life as a person. 44 is about healing past patterns and then making things look good in marketing. So when you talked about like the perfectionist tendencies that you find you have of like really wanting to do things well, that is the 44 showing up and like really knowing how to like optimize things, like whatever, if it's like, with creative endeavors, or especially because you've got that sacral connected to the splenic center, or with your teaching or writing and so on, like it's really about like capturing the right message and like that precision as well with like how you present yourself.
Okay.
Yeah. And then gate 32 is reaching to the root center and is consciously defined. So you'll more consciously experience this energy. So 32 is having this energy for continuity, which is obviously that pressure coming from the root center. And the root center is about like, personal growth, personal development, like evolution, hitting deadlines, that kind of thing. So there's this continuity energy, transformation again. So there's like a big theme of like transformation in the splenic center, and then also like knowing what will be successful.
Okay.
So you really having that like mind's eye to like, I think this also ties into that precision with gate 44 of like knowing, how to write a certain way or how to teach a certain way, or, how to guide your students or do things in a way that will thrive. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm fascinated. Keep talking.
Okay. So 28 is all about, so this is part of the 28 to 38 is like the channeled struggle. So 28 just on its own is about taking risks, facing challenges, and really sharing the struggle and the meaning that you learn from those experiences. So it's really going to be like, this is reaching for the energy of like knowing like what's worth fighting for, like what is worth the struggle. Like you're going to consciously and unconsciously know this because you have it defined. So black, just so you know, the black side, this is your conscious definition in your chart. And then the red side is your unconscious definition. So that's really going to be like what was unconsciously imprinted in you 88 days before the day you were born. And then the black side is the day that you were born. That was the energetic imprinting that you received. And then both of them together is what creates your quantum chart. Okay. So your whole chart together. Yeah. And then we have gate 18. So 18 is about restoring joy, finding what can be corrected. Again, so tying into this, like your experience of like, really being precise with the things that you do. And then also really looking at like how things can be improved. So you have a lot of this like intuitive energy, obviously in the splenic center, but just really knowing how to like craftfully bring things together in a way that will be received well, that will be of transformation, and also that will really, be guidance for others too, right? Like, talking about like the challenges that you're going to overcome, like knowing what's going to be successful, and then being able to intuitively share that with people, as part of the way that you express your energy. Does that resonate with you?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.